Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today for this program. My name is Amar bin Salim. I'm representing the Office of Advancement at LUMS. Today, we're going to be talking about the MS Economics program that we're offering through the Mushtaq Ahmed Gurmani School of Humanities at LUMS. For this discussion, I've been joined by two guests from within LUMS, I can say, Dr. Adil Tariq and Ms. Fatima Bilkis. Dr. Adil, you are working as a faculty member at the Department of Economics at LUMS. Bilkis, you're an alumna of the MS Economics program, plus you're also a colleague of mine at LUMS. Thank you very much for taking time out of your very busy schedules, I must say. I can understand everybody's very busy these days.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having us.
There's all mine. Dr. Adil, we'll start with you. So why should a candidate apply to the Mushtaq Ahmed Gurmani School of Humanities and Social Sciences at LUMS for the MS Economics program? Why shouldn't they go to any other university in Pakistan for an MS Econ program?
So I think we don't have a lot of departments in the country which offer MS Econ programs. Honestly, there are a handful, and LUMS has by far the largest department in terms of faculty size. So we have the most internationally trained professors. Most of them are PhD doctors, masters काफी लोगों ने किया हुआ अच्छी जगहों से. So I think you get that diversity, that variety of economics is a very broad discipline. उसके काफ़ी different areas होते हैं, sub disciplines होती हैं. So it's very important कि अगर आप masters कर रहे हो किसी भी field में, किसी भी discipline में, तो ultimately you want to do research in it. You want to push the boundaries of that the frontier of knowledge in that discipline. So you don't want like a small set of people who have maybe not a lot of variety in terms of the discipline to be teaching you. You need that diversity. So I think that's something that's an advantage. Or uske alawa, again, like we have there are some good departments in Pakistan, but like I said, not many, काफी कम है. So it's not that having said that, I think be careful in stating that it's not कि choice नहीं है तो आप LUMS आ जाएं कि और तो कोई है ही नहीं. It's not that LUMS is the only option or one of you. It is a good program. It's like the faculty is engaged in research. All of them are publishing in good places. They're active in policy work. They work with the government a lot. They work with institutions like the World Bank, the UN. They publish in good journals like I mentioned. So you have people who are tethered to what's current in academic circles and policy circles teaching you, and that's very important. कि आप like I said, graduate level पे जब आप कोई चीज़ पढ़ रहे होते हो तो आपने फिर उसकी आगे application करनी है. आपने उसकी चाहे आपने academic application है, research करनी है, चाहे आपने जाके policy में कोई काम करना है, लेकिन अगर आपके dated professors आपको पढ़ा रहे हैं जिनकी अपनी knowledge I should say dated है, तो वो फिर चाहे वो जितनी मर्जी अच्छी आपको किताबी बातें पढ़ाएं, लेकिन it limits your scope as an academic in that discipline. So वो चीज़ I think काफ़ी strong है, strength है department. And then there's something which goes beyond which is not specific to the department. कि LUMS itself has always imbued the sense of academic excellence. कि the first and foremost, the main thing is कि academics आपकी strong होनी चाहिए, teaching strong बहुत होनी चाहिए. That's how LUMS became recognized कि it's a excellent teaching institution. और फिर अब research पे भी मतलब काफ़ी अच्छी LUMS की reputation बन गई है of all departments. So I think वो चीज़ तो एक general culture है LUMS में कि आपको एक अच्छी education मिलेगी. It's not like you won't get short-handed in terms of the training that's imparted to you. वो training आपको rigorous मिलेगी जो आपको किसी भी अच्छे department में दुनिया में मिलती है. That's very important.
आपने mentioned कि we are the biggest department in Pakistan. Let's say we are the fastest growing economics department in Pakistan. तो इसका मतलब ये है कि हमारी faculty जो है वो भी काफ़ी ज़्यादा है. How do you think that plays a role in ensuring the student professor-student ratio जो है वो भी mention किया maintain की जा सकती है, and at the same time उसका impact क्या होता है students की?
so I think student teacher ratio especially जो masters program है उसमें काफ़ी अच्छा होता है. आप कि like you said, the department has a lot of faculty members, बट ऑन द अदर हैंड इवन दो इकोनॉमिक्स में वैसे इंटरेस्ट बहुत, अब आजकल तो जो हालात हैं वैसे ही बहुत इंटरेस्ट है इकोनॉमिक्स में, बट वी आर एडमिशन क्राइटेरिया
उसके
इज
साथ लगता है हर बंदा इकोनॉमिस्ट भी है।
जी वो आई थिंक ड्राइंग रूम इकोनॉमिस्ट हम सभी हैं, लेकिन आई गेस जो प्रॉपर्ली ट्रेंड इकोनॉमिस्ट हैं वो ज़रूरत है मुल्क को। बट आई वाज जस्ट सेइंग दैट हमारा जो सिलेक्शन क्राइटेरिया है वो अभी भी काफ़ी रिगरस और मेरिट बेस्ड है, कि अब आप ये नहीं हो रहा कि अगर फैकल्टी साइज बढ़ गया या डिमांड बढ़ गया तो आप यू ओपन द फ्लड गेट्स एंड कीप ऑन एडमिटिंग, योर क्लास साइज कीप्स ग्रोइंग। क्लास साइज हमारा अभी भी छोटा होता है मास्टर्स में, सिलेक्टिवली हम अच्छे स्टूडेंट्स लेते हैं जिनका पोटेंशियल होता है, दैट्स इंपॉर्टेंट, वी कैन टॉक अबाउट दैट इन मोर डिटेल लेटर, बट इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट दैट यू योर like you said कि student to teacher ratio is one of the primary determinants of the quality of learning that you get in a classroom, चाहे वो undergrad है चाहे वो masters है। लेकिन अंडरग्रेड में कभी कंस्ट्रेंट होता है कि आप ऑब्वियसली इट्स आउट ऑफ योर कंट्रोल, बट मास्टर्स में यू कान डू दैट आप, और हम वो इंश्योर करते हैं कि हमारा क्लास साइज इतना मैनेजेबल होए कि इंगेजमेंट टीचर की जो है वो ज़रा ज़्यादा है, क्योंकि आपने रिमेंबर मास्टर्स प्रोग्राम जो हमारे हैं उसमें मेजॉरिटी स्टूडेंट जो है वो थीसिस करते हैं, तो थीसिस उन्होंने अब करने किसी सुपरवाइज़र के साथ। अब अगर आपके क्लास में 50 बच्चे हैं तो फिर आप खुद ही सोचें कि वो अगर एक प्रोफेसर 10-10 करा रहा है, 15-15 थीसिस सुपरवाइज, तो क्या फिर वो कितनी अटेंशन देगा, क्या क्वालिटी होएगी काम की, तो वो बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है। हम लोग जनरली लाइक आए सुपरवाइज मास्टर स्टूडेंट्स जो सुपरवाइज में कर रहा होता हूँ 1 से 2 से ज़्यादा नहीं होते, और बाकी कमिटीज़ में मैं होता हूँ, लेकिन जिनको मैं चेयर कर रहा होता हूँ जिनकी थीसिस साल में 1-2 होते हैं, तो वो फिर आप गेट अटेंशन टू डिटेल, यू गेट लाइक
और मेरे ख्याल है वो इस लेवल में बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरत होती है,
वो दैट्स क्रिटिकल, या एब्सोल्युटली।
बल्कि how do you think that plays a role, because you have been on the other side, आपने जो है थीसिस वगैरह किया या पढ़ा बैठ के, आपको कैसे लगता है कि ये एक बहुत सिग्निफिकेंट पॉइंट है टू नॉट हैव सो मेनी स्टूडेंट्स वर्किंग विद वन प्रोफेसर on their research, on whatever they're working with project? How do you think that plays a role in a student's life?
So, I mean, I think one, it gives you a lot of choice, right? In terms of finding a supervisor whose interests match your own, right? Because ideally, your thesis, it's at least 6 months that you're going to spend on this one very specific problem, right? That you selected. It should be at least, right? So some people take up to a year. I took a year to do my thesis, but there are people who are brilliant and who just get it done in campus. There, but I was not one of those students. Now that needs to be a problem that you are passionate about. Otherwise, you will be absolutely miserable, right? And the probability of you being able to pick a topic that you are interested in, right, is significantly higher if you have a diverse faculty to choose between, right, as your supervisor. The other thing is, what you mentioned really interestingly was this sort of cohort that we have here, right? And that cohort effect is really important, right? So just the fact that you are in this very close-knit group, right, who are all, going through the coursework together, having a very similar experience, that small class size really builds, a sense of community within that group, and we really help each other out, so we learn, at least I learned, as much outside of class through study groups, etc., right? मैंने ये reading की है, तुमने ये reading की है, ये चीज़ समझ आई है नहीं, all of that, and so that community is also where a lot of the learning happens, right? And that's only
lasting
possible.
relationships there is.
Yeah, because it's small.
Because it's small,
Yeah.
it's manageable.
Yeah.
And that is the point that could come from someone जिसने anthropology जो है पढ़ी हुई undergrad में. Because it's a unique point to the whole discussion, so I appreciate that. Okay, Dr. Adil will come to you. How have we structured the program? किस तरह से होता है? पहले साल में क्या होता है? कितने courses हैं? दूसरे साल में कितने हैं?
जी सो ये हमारे ना इसमें 2 ट्रैक्स होते हैं। So people who don't have an econ background at all, या जिनका weak econ background हो, let's suppose, but they still want to, they're interested in economics and they want to pursue it. So we don't exclude them. हम उनको option देते हैं कि आपका 2.5 year track है, जिसमें पहला साल आप कह लें कि remedial year है, जिसमें जो necessary skills हैं आपकी, जो training required होती है to do a masters in this discipline, वो चीज़ें आप सीखते हो. So you're generally, sitting in classes which are, let's say कि 3rd 4th year जो undergrad की classes होती है, तो जो basic microeconomics है, macroeconomics है, econometrics है, जो फाउंडेशन है इकोनॉमिक्स की, मॉडर्न इकोनॉमिक्स की, वो आप सीखते हो पहले साल में. एंड देन इफ़ यू पास दोज कोर्सेज, अगर आपको वो ट्रेनिंग आपकी सही हो जाए एंड यू क्लियर दैट, then you get promoted to like the proper like master's program, which is in start from the second year. इस तरह होता है, excuse me. So ये होता है for people like I said who don't have like a strong econ background or no econ background, but they're still interested and they want to do it. तो हम उनको ये ऑप्शन दे देते हैं कि साल में आप relevant चीज़ें पढ़ लो. दूसरी ऑप्शन है कि जो स्टूडेंट्स जिनकी econ background already है अच्छी, who have a good command of the basics of economics which are required to do a master's in it, उनके लिए सीधा 1.5 year track होता है. So people who are coming from the 2.5 year track, they join these the other track students in their second year. So वो फिर उस वक्त फिर आप graduate level courses पढ़ते हो, आपका thesis like he's mentioned आपका start हो जाता है. And I think that's an important point by the way कि जो आप बात कर रही थी कि thesis में it's the most important thing. It's like the reason most people are doing this program to begin with, and I would say generally साल लगता है. People actually were serious about it. वो पहले साल मतलब अपने स्टार्ट से ही शुरू कर देते हैं सोचना कि जी हमने किस चीज़ में रिसर्च करनी है, हमने क्या करना है. They start talking to professors and what not. बाकी इसमें स्ट्रक्चर ये है कि you take courses like I said of the 2.5 year track. पहले साल में आपके अंडरग्रेड के साथ कोर्सेज है ज़्यादा. सेकेंड जी बाकी जो 1.5 साल है उसमें फिर आपके ग्रेजुएट लेवल कोर्सेज होते हैं. यू टेक you get rigorous training in econometrics, in macroeconomics and microeconomics. उस पे जो मुझे याद पड़ता है आई थिंक 2 कोर्सेज होते हैं सब पे. माइक्रो के भी 2, मैक्रो के भी 2, इकोनो के भी 2, एंड देन देयर आर सम फील्ड कोर्सेज, electives होते हैं. एंड देन your thesis starts in like I think officially in the last 6 months, but most people actually start thinking about it at least a year back.
जी सही.
जी जी.
अच्छा एक चीज़ मैं बहुत अप्रिशिएट कर रहा हूँ वो ये कि ख़ुसूसन जिस तरह आपने भी बताया कि in your undergrad if you took anthropology and your master you decided you're going to change your field, you're going to go for economics. So this is something कि हमारा program जो है it becomes available to students from a variety of different fields in their graduate education. But how do you think that adds value to the overall richness of the classroom discussion? जब हम बिठाते हैं बच्चों को साथ इतने सारे मुख्तलिफ बैकग्राउंड से आना.
I think that's a no-brainer. Economics जो है it's not like a pure science like physics or chemistry or something or maths. It is a multidisciplinary thing to begin with. तो economics में अगर आप उसकी history भी थोड़ी देखें कि anthropology, sociology has informed a lot of economic thought and economic discourse. And then people from I think the way it transpired was after the Cold War ended, you had these bunch of scientists who were out of work, and then they ventured into finance, economics, and that's how economics became so mathematical. कि अब इस वक्त there's a conversation to be had कि economics and math ज़्यादा तो नहीं अब होगी बहुत, क्योंकि that's something people complain about, but that's how it is. You can question whether or not it's good for the discipline. लेकिन अगर आपने economics करनी है in this day and age, you have to be good at math more than anything else. That's the main requirement. So yeah, that's we can again talk about that later, but that's critical. तो उसमें आपका जो सवाल था कि क्लासरूम के अंदर तो देखें डिसिप्लिन इटसेल्फ पहली यही है कि जिसमें आप different points of view, different thought processes आ रही हैं, that's how the discipline has grown. So if we are getting people who are, let's suppose जिन्होंने इकोनॉमिक्स नहीं पढ़ी लेकिन जिन्होंने एंथ्रोपोलॉजी पढ़ के आए हैं या जो इंजीनियरिंग पढ़ के आए हैं, well, that's exactly what we're looking for, different ideas. In research, generally, this is not specific to economics. आपकी creativity होती है which matters most. कि आपने अगर कोई frontier को break करना है या आपने knowledge expand करनी है, you can't just, reinvent the wheel. You can't just essentially, do the same stuff over and over again. You have to think of new things.
मतलब ये नहीं कह सकते कि यही रिसर्च जो है वो मलेशिया में किसी बंदे ने की जिसमें हम going to replicate the same model.
That's a very good example. That's an excellent example, by the way. आप बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं कि जब मैं अपने स्टूडेंट्स को सुपरवाइज करता हूँ, चाहे अंडर ग्रेजुएट के या मास्टर जो थीसिस कर रहे होते हैं, तो आई थिंक दैट्स लाइक व्हेन दे आर नॉट अवेयर ऑफ हाउ रिसर्च वर्क्स. सबसे पहले उनकी आइडिया होता है कि यार ये पेपर है, ये देखें ये मलेशिया में उन्होंने किया हुआ, हम पाकिस्तान डेटा उठा के कर दें. एज अ लर्निंग एक्सरसाइज दैट्स गुड. आई थिंक एज अ लर्निंग एक्सरसाइज दैट्स वेरी गुड कि आपको वो चीज़ें करनी आ जाएं. बट इट्स अल्टीमेटली इफ यूर doing new things, you need to think outside the box. So I think that aspect of, bringing that knowledge which is non-econ into the classroom is very important. I learn a lot from my students. I think I've been teaching for more than a decade, and some of the best ideas I've heard are from people who've not been from economics.
Right.
वो बड़ी
right.
चीज़ important होती है.
Indeed, indeed. बिल्कुल सही आपने. Okay, so we'll now come to you. I would love to know, what does a typical day of a student enrolled in the MS Economics program look like? क्या होता है? मतलब सुबह से ही क्लासेस होती हैं, rigorous होता है डे, पता होता है कि आज एग्जाम होगा, फिर यहाँ से भागेंगे, फिर रात भी यहीं पढ़नी है, या नहीं, मतलब it's relaxing as well?
No, I don't think academics in LUMS are what you would call relaxed.
ठीक है.
I
We've
think we're
established
sort
that.
of we're sort of known for the rigor of our programs across the board, but the MS Economics program in particular, I think, perhaps because of the heavy focus on math, etc., means that you generally have classes. At least we had classes right at the start of our day, right? So and we had usually, I think, two classes a day, right? Which is about 4 hours that you spend in class. And I think general rule of thumb is for every hour that you spend in class, you should be prepared to be spending an hour to 2 hours outside of class preparing for that, either doing readings, doing assignments, catching up, making sure you've actually understood everything that was taught to you, right? That sort of exercise.
So was it like that before you enter a certain class, you were already given readings to go through and then come to the class prepared, or whatever you have studied, then you expand on that at home?
Yeah, so it depends on the course, and it depends on the instructor, right? For some classes you will have readings that you're expected to have done, right? But for other subjects, right, it's enough to sort of show up to class. They are more taught courses, right? So the professor will explain, a particular theory or a particular derivation for a proof, etc. And then you sort of go home and then you do the associated reading just to be able to cement that learning. It also depends on your sort of learning style, right? Do you learn better if you're already going in an idea of, acha, this is what's going to happen, etc. But that ratio, I think, is fairly stable, right? We had different types of assignments for different courses. Some of them were software based. So one of the key elements of the MS program is they really help you build your data analysis skills, right? So we had a lot of Stata. Stata is the software that is generally taught at LUMS. So we had a lot of Stata-based assignments. So we spent a fair amount of time doing that.
Okay.
Right? But we also had a lot of time left over to be able to do
did you have fun? Because I also want to know, did you have fun?
Again, I had a lot of fun. We were a small group of people. We got along really well, and so even if it was just during study breaks or such, we used to hang out at the Khoka a lot. Elaichi chai. Especially in the winters.
It's the winter time.
Yeah, so that sort of thing. I mean, we did a lot of that. We used to head out for lunch. We used to have breaks in between our classes. Sometimes 2 ghante ki break hoti thi, right? So depending on the day and depending on the time of semester, and there's always fun stuff happening on campus. There's concerts. There's lots
events
of other
coming
events.
up, and the overall community in LUMS at large is quite diverse. People from different areas, people from different backgrounds, and they're all just coming together. And you don't really have to restrict to your own classroom, right?
Yeah. No, you don't.
And so many facilities at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, we have a great pool, we have a great sports center, So there were always things, people who were sporty would go out onto there's a cricket pitch, there's a soccer pitch, whatever you want to do. LUMS is a great space to do that. And yeah, and also for women, for girls, it's also a particularly safe space. I mean, nowhere is perfect, right? But on the spectrum of, dangerous to safe, this is, I think, especially for Pakistan, just a really wholesome environment for, girls to be able to run around in. We used to, get up to all sorts of shenanigans, and it's a nice space in that sense.
Yeah, I think we're one of those very few universities in Pakistan. On campus residence we provide to students who are coming from different cities, and so we always try to make sure we're mentioning it to our audience that we have 13 hostels, and 6 of them are for women, 7 of them are for men. So we have 46% students coming from different areas, or at least they're residents on campus.
Also, I mean, you guys will read about all the big facilities on the website also, but there's also little things. Huh? Like we have ducks on campus, so if you're looking for sort of like just a time like to just de-stress or whatever, you can go feed the ducks by the pond. You can, like, there's lots of like little things, on campus that just make it a really enjoyable experience. Yeah. And we also have a lot of food options as well that you don't get on other universities.
For that, you will have to come to
Yeah,
LUMS and
exactly.
see for yourself.
Yeah.
Because we've got a lot of
There's
options.
lots
in
of
all the
great
different
food.
schools at LUMS, we've got
Yeah.
a lot of feature options for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think economics की अच्छी market है. Job की अगर आप बात कर रहे हैं तो there are jobs in academia first and foremost if you want to venture into higher education. काफ़ी लोग जाके professors लग जाते हैं, teaching start कर देते हैं. On a related note, काफ़ी लोग research start कर देते हैं. There are institutes like great institutes like SERP, like Ideas, government institutes, Perry है, Urban Unit है, government है, World Bank है. A lot of our graduates have gone on to these places जहाँ पे वो apply करते हैं अपनी skills. And then there's also the industry consultancy है, McKinsey and company में लोग जाते हैं काफ़ी. A lot of our graduates actually end up in the Middle East, outside of Pakistan.
So यानी
So
कि
that's
पाकिस्तान से बाहर भी मार्केट है
Oh,
for
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people like
क्योंकि शायद वेडिंग मार्केट पाकिस्तान से बाहर ही हो.
जी. हाँ नहीं, absolutely. I think economics, finance अगर आप दोनों को देखें तो पाकिस्तानी मार्केट उस तरह नहीं डेवलप कि वो वाली जॉब्स हुए. But once you venture outside of Pakistan and if your training is good enough, which I would claim it is at LUMS, but yeah, and like I think the proof is there कि वो students हमारे हैं जो बाहर जाते हैं उनको अच्छी jobs मिलती हैं in the industry, in in consultancy, in policy work, stuff like that. And then there's like another group जो एक significant chunk होता है जो masters या आगे PhD करने चला जाते हैं और के लिए a lot of people want to do another masters in like a related sort of field at in good places abroad, and then a lot of students go for a PhD के जाके जिनको शौक होता है कि हमने academia में ही रहना है या even अगर industry में जाना है लेकिन we want more training in economics. So our students go on to like top universities all over the world for PhDs, for more master's programs. So I think opportunities तो बहुत अच्छी हैं. I don't honestly remember कि कोई ऐसा हमारा student हो कि who was कि यार अब ना कोई नौकरी है ना कुछ और कर सकते हैं. There's always good opportunities. Yeah, I think that's very important.
Actually, when we talk about that, I would really appreciate if we could also talk about the admission criteria. What are the steps that the students, that the applicants need to cover if they are planning on entering the MS Economics program? And because for sure I know that interview is a very significant part as well. Conduct करते हैं when you're selecting candidates. What would be the right candidate to apply to our program?
So I think इस थोड़ी बात पहले की थी कि दो ट्रैक्स हैं कि अगर किसी econ नहीं स्ट्रॉन्ग तो वो 2.5 year ट्रैक में चला जाए. But I think in a nutshell, rather than going to the specifics, the main thing that you need to be a good economist is you need to be good at math. It's like I said before, it's very important. You have to be good at math. या आपके पास वो potential होना चाहिए. And the other thing, इसकी जिस तरह I think बिल्की इस बात कर रही थी कि आपको एक बूट कैम्प भी होता है, आपको मिलता है at the start, and आपको remedial साल मिलता है जिसमें आपको training मिलती है math की. So as long as you have that ability, you're like a sponge and you can, learn all of those skills, that's also fine. We don't exclude those people. But आपका potential होना चाहिए. Ability mathematical आपकी होनी चाहिए अच्छी. And the other thing is analytical ability. So that's very important. The third thing which I would say is writing ability. That's also critical because this isn't, again, like a physical science or a hard science के जहाँ पे writing doesn't matter. It's like a mesh between the sciences and social sciences and humanities. Economics है ही multidisciplinary. तो उसमें ये चीज़ important है कि आप मैथ आपकी अच्छी हुई, रिग्रेस आपकी ट्रेनिंग हुई, आपकी एनालिटिकल एबिलिटी स्ट्रॉन्ग हुई, लेकिन आपको लिखना भी आता है.
लिखना भी. और मेरा नहीं ख्याल कि जो हमारा रिमेडियल प्रोग्राम है, यू वुड नो बेटर, कि अगर आप आपको वो writing skills नहीं है तो मुझे नहीं लगता कि इतना time होता है during this program that we train students
Yeah,
on writing skills
जी
as
जी,
well.
and I think the same goes for math कि math वही बात है कि आपने let's suppose अगर वो courses नहीं पढ़े हुए, आपके पास कोई जो particular skills हैं जो हम economics में यूज़ करते हैं, आपका linear algebra नहीं strong, आपका calculus advanced इतना नहीं strong, आप ये चीज़ें नहीं आती, वो आपको ठीक है सिखा देंगे, लेकिन आपकी base तो होनी चाहिए. ये नहीं है कि आप if you know that to put it simply, आपको पता है कि यार math से मेरी जान जाती है. I hate math, right? Math makes me quiver in my boots. और आपको है कि यार लिखना तो मुझे पसंद, मुझे तो लिखना नहीं आता, या मेरा आर्टिस्टिक दिमाग है, मेरा एनालिटिकल दिमाग नहीं है, so then this is not for you. This is not like you shouldn't get into this program. I think that's critical. तो ये चीज़ है, again like I said, for better or worse, economics is very mathematical. तो वो आपको there's no way around it. There's no way to circumvent that.
We can debate on that, लेकिन जैसे आपने कहा हम इस
हाँ,
बारे में
अगर-
discuss कर सकते हैं,
जी,
मगर
जी, जी, जी.
वो नहीं हो सकता.
I think this also links really well to the question of employability as well, right? So, because this is all about transferable skills, right? And one of the things that the LUMS program does really well is developing those transferable skills, right? And one of them is this mathematical skill and the ability to write, but also, as I mentioned before, the data analysis skill, right? Because you can take that skill set and then you can apply it to different questions or different problems, right? Whether they be problems of governance or be problems of, how does a particular firm need to maximize its revenue, right? How do you, make different choices at the firm level or at the country level, etc. That skill set, right, is the same. And if you have that, then you can go into a number of different industries or sectors, right? And it really opens those doors up for you. And as I said, I have a background in anthropology, right? Which is the most qualitative of the social sciences. But I hadn't done any math after calculus my first year of university, right? Your bachelor's. So for 3 years, I had touched no mathematics at all, right? To the point where I had sort of almost forgotten how to solve, simple equations, etc. But the first semester, we had a really basic maths course where we were taken from, like really simple algebra all the way up to, differential calculus, etc., right? And then we had subsequent courses that did the same thing for probability, did that for statistics, right? So that we could take, econometrics courses later, etc. So, if you don't have that background, it's nothing to be afraid of, like you said, as long as you are willing to put in the effort, right, to learn it, and you feel like you have a general inclination,
आपका
right,
aptitude
for
है,
that,
बिल्कुल, हाँ.
for that type
Plus, we
of
have an
work.
open doors policy at Slum, so that you can go to a professor's office anytime. I think they'll be willing to help you.
Yeah, no, the faculty is really supportive, and oftentimes, if you
You sir.
I would say I'm very supportive.
no,
My students can speak better to that.
We'll talk to your students, and I'm quite sure. I'm just kidding.
No, but often sometimes, even if it's not related to their particular course, not always. I mean, people are busy. They also, will sometimes be in a meeting or whatever. But, often we'll walk into a professor's class and say, into a professor's, office and say, I'm having trouble with this concept. And I know that you teach this, but in a different course. Can you suggest some resources? They'll be willing to do that for you as long as, you have actually already put in the work and you're asking intelligent questions, right? So you can't just sort of saunter in and say, oh, sir, mujhe to kuch samajh hi nahi aa raha. Kya cheez nahi samajh aa rahi? Have a actual yes, and so if you've done that and you have actual pointed specific questions, they provide really excellent support.
Exactly.
Yeah.
बिल्कुल and उसकी मेरा ख्याल है एक और उसकी example ये भी है कि since we have multiple schools housed within LUMS, we have a school of law, school of education, school of business, school of science and engineering, Gurmani School of humanities, social sciences, so we could have applications in multiple different factors and multiple different industries, and then we could go to a professor and see case की relevance मेरे concept की in your particular industry, what would that be, and let's take your 2 cents in and maybe embed those in your research as well. So that is also possible indeed. And before I close this point, I would just like to mention that if you're considering to apply to LUM's MS Economics program, you just need to have 16 years of education, and you will also need to go through a test which would be GRE exam. So वो भी जो है important है, इसकी dates वगैरह, इसका पूरा process जो है sign in करने का, sign up करने का, इसके लिए सारा हमारी website पे available है. So make sure you are going through that. Last question, Dr. Adib, what are the funding opportunities available to students who are looking for some financial assistance?
जी, सो लम्स में काफ़ी जिसमें मैंने कहा है कि आपको फंडिंग मिल जाती है थ्रू मेरिट स्कॉलरशिप्स, थ्रू फाइनेंशियल एड एट द स्टार्ट ऑफ योर प्रोग्राम if you're enrolling in the econ master's program. But if you don't get that, it's not like you don't have to lose hope. You can do TA-ships, you can do RA-ships when you actually start your
You can earn
masters.
as well.
हाँ, तो आप वहाँ से आपकी अर्निंग हो जाती है. उसके अलावा और अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ बहुत होती है लम स्टूडेंट्स के पास, और काफ़ी चीज़ें चलती रहती हैं. यू कैन आपकी ट्यूटरिंग होती है, that sort of stuff through different centers, which is formal, and lum students can earn good money through that. But I think TA-ships and RA-ships तो regularly students करते हैं. And I think that's also that's a nice sort of throwback to the point we made initially कि LUMS की faculty इतनी active है research में, policy में, कि we are always looking for good RAs. तो RA opportunities are plenty. TA-ships तो शायद आपको मिलनी है क्योंकि आपको हर क्लास में TA चाहिए.
लेकिन RA आपको जरूर चाहिए.
लेकिन हाँ, मतलब RA ये नहीं है कि यार एक दो बस प्रोफेसर जो कर रहे हैं रिसर्च, तो ज़्यादा डिमांड नहीं है. RAs की डिमांड बहुत होती है यहाँ पे, और we always look for good people. One thing which I think which is important to say is कि which will be an important attribute for a student when they're coming in, कि आपका अगर आपका डिसिप्लिन अच्छा है, आपका वर्क एथिक अच्छा है, तो you will do well in this program, and that's also good to make you stand out as a potential RA applicant. मेरे लिए अगर मैंने RA रखना, सबसे important चीज़ ये कि यार ये बंदा रिस्पॉन्सिबल है, इसका वर्क एथिक अच्छा है, यानी एबिलिटी भी है, लेकिन ये ज़्यादा
मतलब आपके पर्सनैलिटी ट्रेट्स भी मैटर करते
जी,
हैं
कि आप उसको डिपेंड कर सकते हैं या नहीं कर सकते. तो वो चीज़ आपको आपकी एकेडमिक्स में भी हेल्प करेगी. सो द पॉइंट इज़ कि यू डोंट हैव टू लूज होप कि यार मुझे इतने हालात ख़राब है इकॉनमी के, आई कांट रियली अफोर्ड इट, मुझे फंडिंग नहीं मिली, मुझे मेरिट स्कॉलरशिप नहीं मिली, मुझे फाइनेंशियल एड नहीं मिली, आई डोंट क्वालिफाई फॉर दैट, बट इट्स स्टिल टफ. You can, if you do well enough, you can land a TA-ship or an RA-ship. I think there's a good chance of doing that.
Absolutely, welcome. And you were telling us before the beginning of the program, you also got a merit scholarship when you were in the program.
So I was in the 2.5-year track, and I think there were about 7 or 8 of us. But the top 2 students in the cohort were given merit scholarship. So
so you were amongst the top 2.
I was
okay.
the second. I will be very specific.
Yeah.
I was the second. But yeah, one to the top person, it was 100% scholarship for the next year. And to the second slot, which was me, was a 50% scholarship, but which was still fairly substantial. The other thing when it comes to funding is, LUMS also now has a lot of pedagogical partnership funding available, right? So if your research for your thesis is compelling enough, you can apply for one of those grants also. And there's always sort of external grants that I think, as at least while we're students, we perhaps don't think about as much. But our faculty is sort of open enough that if you identify a funding opportunity, right, that is also aligned with their interests, right, you can very much just write a proposal, submit that, right, and if you get that project, your RA-ship funding, etc., can come from there as well. So
I think that's a brilliant point that you have mentioned, कि इसके साथ external funding opportunities, if they are available, you could also go for those.
अच्छा, if I may, I just want to add one thing कि ये काफ़ी अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं फंडिंग की. जिस तरह बिल्कीस ने भी ऐड की है कि आपकी पेडागोजिकल पार्टनरशिप्स होती हैं, व्हाट नॉट, यू हैव ग्रांट्स व्हिच द अप्लाइज फॉर, जिसके आप मिल सकती है एज एन RA. आप खुद अप्लाई कर सकते हो ग्रांट के लिए. चीज़ है, जस्ट कॉशन पीपल व्हेन दे आर कमिंग इन, आप साथ कोई काम नहीं, पार्ट टाइम कोई जॉब नहीं कर सकते. ये इस तरह का प्रोग्राम नहीं है कि आप थोड़ा जी आपके रात को आके पढ़ लो, या अगर आपने नाइट जॉब करनी है तो आप सुबह क्लासेस करके चले जाओ. इट्स, आई थिंक बिल्कीस टॉक अबाउट दिस कि यू हैव गुड वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस, बट इट्स रियली रिगरस. यू कांट रियली, अगर आप ये सोच रहे हैं कि आके यार मैं अपने साथ कोई नौकरी कर रहा हूँ पार्ट टाइम और साथ में मास्टर्स कर लूँ, वो नहीं हो सकता. This is designed for full time, students के जो सारा वक्त सुबह से रात लम्स में ही रह के पढ़े basically.
I think apart from the executive programs, उसमें मेरा ख्याल है कि it's quite established. Our programs are so rigorous and designed that way that you won't be able to take work outside or outside LUMS. तो ये RAT है तो मेरा ख्याल है of course वो एक डिज़ाइन में शामिल हो जाते हैं. It
The
helps your
symbiotic
understanding.
relationship between what you're doing and आपका जो आपकी learning होती है तो उसको further ही करता है. But कोई ये नहीं है कि आप किसी कहीं moonlight कर रहे हैं रात को. You can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason IRShips work are exactly this, because they're the faculty member that you are doing the IRShip with will usually make sure that it ties in very closely either with your thesis or, with other things that you're learning and, advanced microeconomics or whatever it is, right? And because you're working with LUMS faculty, they will also be cognizant of the fact that, okay, this is exam week, right? If you had an external employer, you wouldn't get that sort of understanding, right? So that's really the only reason that works.
Bilkul sahi. Of course.
Yes.
Point noted. Thank you very much, Bilkis. Thank you so much, Dr. Edin, for joining us today. I loved the discussion. I hope our viewers will find it beneficial for them, those who are considering to apply to LUMS for this program this year or even in the future as well. And also, if you are planning on applying to the MS Economics program, make sure you're signing up today. And the latest by which you can send in your online application is May 2nd. And we would also need your supporting documents. You could submit those latest by May 5th. But please make sure you are working on your application right away. It's a very lengthy process. We're going to require a lot of documents. So surely you'll have to submit all of those online. But still, it's going to require a lot of digging in. It's going to require a lot of introspection as well. Also, if there's any question that you would want the answer to, what you could do is you could write us an email at admissions@lums.edu.pk, or maybe just create your account, go to the chat section within the online portal and have a chat with one of our representatives of the admissions office and have a history of that chat maintained as well. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to evaluating your application. Take care.